Good morning, everyone. I'm John Myrie, and welcome to the Wisconsin Northland Outdoors. On this week's show, we have reports and some tips from Jarrett McCarthy down at Hayward Bait and Bottle. And then we had a very interesting talk with Hayward area fishing guide Tom Leahy. And then lastly, we talked with Mike Persson about the upcoming Hayward Lakes Muskies Incorporated tournament. Lots to cover on this week's show, all coming up right after these messages.
Make sure you're ready to conquer fall and winter by custom ordering your new Polaris side-by-side or ATV today at Hayward Power Sports. Get work done in record time in a Polaris Ranger with features like an electronic cargo box lift and VersaTrack turf molding. Polaris Razor is the choice for thrill-seeking adrenaline junkies everywhere. And the Polaris General is the world's most comfortable and powerful crossover machine. All three have exclusive features for gadget lovers, including the 7-inch Ride Command display with GPS navigation and group ride feature that allows you to sync with others in your group to keep communication and pace. Plus, the soundtrack to make your ride even more epic is delivered through a Rockford Fosgate audio system. And ATV purists, don't forget about the machine that started it all, the legendary Polaris Sportsman. To ensure the quickest delivery, come see us and get yours ordered today at Hayward Power Sports, just 10 minutes east of Hayward on Highway 77 or online at haywardpowersports.com.
See Hayward Power Sports for details. Always wear a helmet, never drink and ride.
Riding along in my automobile.
Bumping into things unexpectedly? Make your first choice for collision repair. Ernie's Auto Body, featuring the most advanced collision repair facility in northwest Wisconsin. With a state-of-the-art spray, bake-down, draft paint booth for that better-than-new finish, laser technology for precision frame alignment, loaner cars available, computerized estimates, written guarantees, and documented unmatched customer service, the clear choice is Ernie's Auto Body, south of Hayward on Highway 63 and Nursery Road, where quality is no accident.
Lynn's Custom Meats and Catering welcomes you to stop by for their great lunch menu. And while you're there, Lynn's also has a great selection of custom-cut meats and sausages, as well as many varieties of snack sticks, jerky, fresh cheese curds, and much more. Lynn's is open Mondays through Fridays from 9 to 5:30 and 9 to 4 on Saturdays. Lynn's Custom Meats and Catering in Hayward. Big fish stories come to life at the Freshwater Fishing Hall of Fame. The world's largest shrine to freshwater anglers boasts a 4.5-story tall walk-through muskie that's a half a city block long. It's like taking a peek into Granddad's old tackle box with thousands of mounted fish, antique outboard motors, and historical sport fishing artifacts. Stop in and take a chance on our 50-50 cash raffle. You could walk away with a pile of cash. See the big ones that didn't get away at the Freshwater Fishing Hall of Fame, Highways 27 and B in Hayward. Open daily, including Sundays, through October 31st at 9:30 a.m. We're recording this week's show down at Hayward Bait and Bottle, and I'm talking to Jarrett McCarthy. And Jarrett, good to have you on the show here again. We're getting really into the fall now.
Yeah, we really are. We're seeing some beautiful fall colors out there on all the trees. Some cooler temps. Water temps are starting to drop, and we're going to start getting into some fall patterns here.
What have you been hearing as far as the fishing out there? So let's start with the crappies. That's always a popular fish for people in the fall.
Sure. So crappies have been really good as of late. A lot of people are getting them still out roaming the basins. Some people are fishing them cribs, and there are some people that are starting to fish them on those deeper weed lines, and some of those fish are starting to move up a little shallower now.
I've been watching people out there. There's some people just traditionally fishing them, throwing the anchor out and, and fishing with bobbers and minnows. And there's beginning to be more people now that are using like a Minnesota with spot lock and moving around, which I found is way more productive than sitting in one spot, because now you can kind of search the fish out and get on top of the fish and stay there, especially when you use some of the electronics out there.
Yeah, those electronics are really helpful in finding those roaming schools of fish. Crappies are nomads. They're always on the move. So using your good electronics and then using that spot lock or an anchor to stay on a school of fish once you find them is really helpful.
Yeah, you bet. And the bluegills too, they've been seems like right with them. Walleye fishing seems to be starting to pick up a little bit, and it usually does as we get in the fall here, pre-turnover stuff.
Yeah, it seems like we've been starting to see less and less people, out there trolling or what have you. Some people are starting to use crankbaits, but we're seeing a lot of people that are starting to have some success on walleye suckers.
And there's still a lot of fish out there in some of the big lakes like Coudray and Grindstone that are suspended right about that thermocline. That thermocline seems to move down quite a bit in its way down in that 30-foot range of some of those big lakes. And, there's a lot of fish suspended out there, and that's a trolling pattern there.
Yep, it definitely is, using those deeper diving trolling baits to get down there and get above those walleyes that are out there feeding on on whitefish and what have you. But yeah, it's been a good bite.
And talk about that too. A little tip I've talked about before on the show. There's an app you can get for your phone, whether it's an iPhone or an Android phone, called Precision Trolling. And that app has got like a Berkeley flicker shad, which will only go 14 feet down normally with 100 and some feet of line out. If you use this system called 50+2, which is 50 feet out, your lure out 50 feet, put a 2-ounce snap weight on it, you can get it out 30, 35 feet. And that's a real good way for people that don't want to run boards and a whole bunch of technical stuff to get out there. Learn how to use that. You can get that bait down in that thermocline at 18, 20 feet, wherever you want it.
Yeah, and that Precision Trolling app is really great because it's got a lot of, your main types of lures in that database. So whether you're using those Berkeley flicker shads, if you're using Rapala shad wraps, whatever kind of baits you've got, it's in there. You can find it, and you can get dialed into some fish.
It comes with the number 7 flicker shad for free, and you can buy additional lures for like a couple of bucks a piece. How about musky fishing? Let's talk about that a little bit.
So musky fishing is really starting to pick up. We got musky suckers in the shop now. We've even had a couple of employees getting out in the shop here, getting some nice muskies, but muskies have been going really good lately. You
bet. And pike, anything there?
Yeah, pike are always around. Seems like a lot of pike are starting to hit those bigger northern suckers. A lot of people are starting to get them on live bait now.
And let's talk about bass fishing real quick. Bass fishing and smallmouth fishing always is real good this time of year, and largemouth actually is pretty decent too.
Yeah, so very soon when we get all the frogs to make all their way out of the lake, we're going to start seeing a lot of these bass come up to the shallows and start feeding on, frogs that are getting on the lake, bluegills or what have you. A lot of these fish are going to start moving up a little bit too to get into some of that warmer water.
And smallmouth will be a lot of the deeper rock humps. And I fish smallmouth anywhere from 18, 20 feet down to 30 feet a lot of times. Same place as the walleyes a lot of times in part of September here, the end of September.
Yep, and they're going to start getting really, really aggressive out there. So, a lot of this summer you've been doing finesse tactics for all these bass, and now they're going to start getting really aggressive. So you're going to start working your lipless rattle baits or what have you, some faster reaction baits, and you're going to be getting some good strikes.
And let's talk hunting season. A lot of guys are waiting for the hunting season as fall gets here. Hunting seasons are open now for archery and for, small game. Are you hearing anybody seeing any decent deer out there?
Yeah, seeing some decent deer on trail cameras. Had quite a few guys with some success for blackberry out in the woods or what have you. But, hunting season's looking good so far.
What are you hearing on any other things, like maybe grouse? I'm hearing populations. It seems like they've gotten a little better, but just in certain areas.
Just myself, I heard a lot of grouse this last spring, but haven't heard much on grouse. Seeing a lot of turkey out there, though, and that might be why we're not seeing as many grouse.
In the archery season, I know you guys are pretty well equipped here in the shop. You've got a lot of different equipment and gear in here. And the big thing over the last few years seems to be crossbows. And I'm standing here talking to you, and I'm looking at quite a few crossbows on the shelf. Wide range of prices, too, on them, right?
Yeah. We got crossbows that are priced for the beginner coming into the sport, and we got crossbows that are for the person that's had 10, 15 years of experience shooting them.
Yeah, and they'll all work just as good shooting a deer. Crossbow is an effective weapon. It makes it a little easier than having to practice, but you should still make sure you're sighted in right and still practice with it.
Still sighted in right and make sure you know how to operate it. We've seen a handful of people that come in that are new that maybe need to be shown, a practice shot or two in the back room or what have you with John, but just know how to operate it successfully, and you'll have a good trip in the woods.
You talk about operating and successful too. It's just every once in a while, and you see some in here where they blow up the bows. Some of the things that'll blow up the bows is putting the arrow in wrong, or if it will dry fire. Some of them won't dry fire. They're not supposed to, but they still could. There's a lot of things you can do wrong that basically you can hurt that crossbow. If you follow the manuals and go on YouTube and look for some instructions on how to maintain it and take care of it, they'll last a long time, but you can there's a lot of stored energy in those things.
Yeah, they are very important to learn how to use correctly.
I know a lot of them have good finger guards now, because that was always an issue. People would get their fingers up and away that string, and, it could actually take your finger off. But now a lot of these bows, most of them have pretty substantial finger guards to keep you from doing that.
Yeah, I suppose that's why we all have 10 fingers, just in case you make an oopsies on one of these crossbows.
And as far as the fall fishing, you guys got a lot of equipment in here for that too, and a lot of lures. And you had, like you mentioned before, you got sucker rigs, some rods. And the one thing I'll tell you, I don't know what you got here for live bait rods. You got anything in here for live bait rods for sucker fishing?
Oh yeah, of course we do. We're well supplied on rods still.
You bet. Good to have you on here, Jarrett. And I want to thank you for taking that time, sharing that information. Hopefully everybody gets out there and enjoys the fall, because, it'll only be a couple of months and we'll be looking at more of that white stuff. I don't really want to talk about that right now.
I'm ready to talk about it, but yeah, all right, let's do some fall fishing. Thanks for having me, John.
Yep, thank you. Well, folks, we need to take a break right now and hear from some of the fine sponsors that make this show possible every week. We come back, we've got a very interesting interview with Hayward Area Fishing Guide Tom Leahy. So stay tuned. We'll be back right after these messages. Hunters and anglers, Hayward Bait and Bottle is your one-stop sport and bottle shop in the Hayward area. Stop in and check out the huge selection of musky, bass, walleye, and panfish tackle. They also carry archery supplies, bows, crossbows, muzzle loaders, ammo, scents, tree stands, and much more. Gear up for hunting and fishing at Hayward Bait and Bottle. And while you're there, check out the bottle shop for a full selection of beer, wine, and liquor, too. Hayward Bait and Bottle is your one-stop sport and bottle shop.
The Hayward Lakes Visitors and Convention Bureau in Sawyer County, Wisconsin welcomes you to our Northwoods hometown. No matter the season, no matter the activity, you'll always be surrounded by our great outdoors. What more could you ask for in a vacation destination? Woods, waters, world-class events. Contact us for information on lodging, dining, attractions, events, trail conditions, and more. Order your free vacation guide and start planning your getaway today. Visit us at haywardlakes.com or call 1-800-724-2992.
Hit the water next spring in the boat you've always wanted by ordering it today at Hayward Power Sports. New inventory has been impossible to find, but if you order yours by August 28th, the factory will have it ready by spring. Sit down with one of our knowledgeable staff and let them help you build the perfect boat. We offer Tracker, America's #1 selling aluminum fishing boat, or choose a Lund. No boat brand holds their value better. We also sell Sun Tracker, the world's best-selling pontoon, and Bennington pontoons, the height of luxury and style. See us today at Hayward Power Sports, just 10 minutes east of Hayward on Highway 77.
If you'd like to have your time fishing be more enjoyable and productive, hiring a fishing guide can be a good investment. Whether it's learning more about fish patterns throughout the year, learning how to use your depth finder to find the best spots and fish, learn how to use that GPS to get the most out of it, or learn better boat control. A day on the water with a guide can really help you to be a better angler, as well as make a day on the lake very enjoyable. To book a guide trip this year or get more information, you can find us on the internet at www.wiscnorthlandoutdoors.com, and then just click on Area Guides.
Welcome back to another segment of this week's Wisconsin Northland Outdoors, and this part of the show is brought to you by the Hayward Lakes Visitors and Convention Bureau. For more information on lodging and vacationing here in the Hayward Lakes area, check out their website at haywardlakes.com. Folks, one of the guides that we get on here quite often from time to time is Hayward Area Fishing Guide Tom Leahy, and we talked with Tom the other night on the phone about fall fishing. We're talking to Hayward Area Fishing Guide Tom Leahy, and Tom, we're getting into the fall now. The water temperatures are cooling off, and fishing's gonna get better and better and better here as we get up to the turnover, and it seems to get a little tough on some lakes, but overall it'll get good even after the turnover. What do you expect we're going to have this fall?
Yeah, John, looking back to last year, if I recall, September things started picking up real nice as far as crappie, panfish, that sort of thing. The walleyes started cooperating a little bit better. And the fall musky bite was great, especially with the suckers.
Well, talk about crappies real quick. Crappies in the spring, a lot of people have no problem finding, and they go up shallow. And then sometime during the summer, they seem to get harder to find. And on some lakes, like I know you spend a bunch of time on Chippewa flowage, and also on Nelson Lake, the crappies tend to get out there over some of that deeper water sometime in the mid to late summer for sure, and they get out there, and they're a lot easier to find if you know how to use your electronics and you got good electronics in the boat.
Yes, I actually started in the past couple weeks. Started seeing a lot of crappies moving deeper, and some of the cribs, sunken bogs, structure like that. Maybe even starting to get in some of the basins, which especially happens in October or end of September. It might be 20 foot, might be 35 foot, like on Namakogan.
Well, when people want to catch those crappies, if you can find those crappies, I see an awful lot of people that will go out in an area where the crappies are, and they anchor down with an anchor, and they'll sit there and they'll throw out a bobber with a minnow on it. And I find that you're a lot more productive by moving around a little bit. I use spot lock on a Minn Kota to anchor the boat, just so I can move around real quick. But I don't fish a bobber. I fish straight down. I fish with plastics all the time, and I think you would do the same thing, right?
Yep, pretty much. Yeah, as far as, so far now it's starting to be the fall period. The crappies and the nice bluegills I've been getting kind of jumping around, especially, maybe catch a couple fish, few fish, and then they slow down. Yeah. It's okay to be patient, but sometimes you might end up wasting some time doing that. If you have the electronics where you can see them, follow them, that sort of thing, that's really nice.
Well, I noticed the one thing, too, is that a lot of people tend to get too aggressive out there jigging. They always got to be making that thing try to look real. But I remember old-time guides telling me years ago, and that's how I learned it, is try to hold it still, because you never will hold it still, and it's always moving down there. And sometimes these fish, if it's too jumpy down there, they kind of spooks the fish, I think.
Yeah, looking at, I think, last week I was jigging on the flowage, but it was real windy that day. And, just that wind and just dropping down a minnow with a smaller jig or a plastic, maybe with a sinker above it or barrel swivel and sliding sinker, whatever it might be. You can make it fancy, you can go simple. Yeah, almost just holding it, floating it, dropping it down to the bottom, reeling up one or two cranks, and just holding it right there. And they would hit it. Or I've had, this past week where, that wasn't working so good when it was calmer, pitching it out, sinking it and just working it in, maybe, if you're marking them 3 or 4 feet off bottom, that sort of thing. Anywhere from the plastics I was using this past year and this year, them stinger shad, there's all kinds of different kinds, gulp, minnows, pearl, green, whatever, or just doing it the old-fashioned way with a real minnow. Those are great options.
Well, I know one thing, we've known this for years, ice fishing. We can sit there when we ice fish, we can actually watch the fish and how they respond to what you're doing jigging. And you can do the same thing if you fish straight down off the back of the boat under your transducer in open water, too. And you can learn a lot watching the fish on sonar. And now this year, playing around with that live scope, I've kind of really realizing just how spooky those fish are sometimes. Where you talk about a crappie coming up in the wintertime, he's gonna coax them into hitting. But if you drop that jig real quick, all of a sudden the fish are looking at it, kind of scatter sometimes. They're a lot more spooky down there than people think. And just the wrong presentation, it will turn them off real quick.
Exactly.
Talk about walleyes a little bit here. What's your favorite way of getting walleyes in the fall time, like when we're coming into here?
Lately, especially because the absence of having leeches available, getting them on a crawler, jigging a crawler. I started doing that in August, actually, although you get picked at by some bluegills and such. But, jigging a crawler, jigging a fathead, and then come fall, jigging maybe a bigger jig and the walleye suckers. So live bait wise anyway. And then a whole nother aspect is trolling. So.
Well, the bait type and the size of the bait does make a big difference. People think, well, I could get by with using the cheaper, smaller minnows, and sometimes you're better off with the walleyes with the bigger bait.
Exactly, and I actually I think starting now, I am not going to buy crappie minnows anymore. I mean, crappie minnows have their purpose, but the problem is when you get them crappie, so they're just so tiny. It's actually nice having that fat head. It's going to target some bigger crappies, and it's going to target some walleyes too. Doing that, so.
You bet. Well, in the fall time here, when you get into mid to late September and in October, I do a lot of smallmouth fishing and some walleye fishing on some of the big deep clear lakes, and one of the things I do is I don't use walleye suckers. I'll jump clear up to using northern pike bait for smallmouth and for walleyes, and I seem to catch the bigger fish doing that, and we catch a lot of fish doing it. And it just the bait size, when people think 4 inches of big walleye bait, no, it isn't, because you can go clear up to a 6-inch walleye or northern pike sucker, and a good sized walleye will still hit it, and so will smallmouth bass.
Yep. Bulking up your jig. That's another option where you put on whether it's a 1/8 ounce or a 1/4 ounce jig, and putting on a twister tail and a minnow or a half a crawler. That's not a bad way to do it either.
I fished with a guy down the Mississippi River one time. We were fishing, and I met the guy. He actually was a guide, but I was fishing with him out there during sports show season in the wintertime. And he was fishing. He'd actually be using a 6-7 inch plastic lizard on a 1/2 ounce jig, and he was tipping it with a preserved shiner minnow, about a 3-inch minnow, and we're catching 14, 15-inch walleyes doing it. They were hitting that great big target presentation in that cold water.
Oh, I believe it.
You bet. Tom, let's talk a little bit about other fish. Muskies, that's something a lot of guys come up here after in the fall. Muskie season, or musky fishing should get real good.
Yeah, and I've been doing some musky stuff too. Yeah, lately it seems like overcast, rainy, storms rolling through. That's been pretty productive. And that was, this past week it has dropped the water temperature. Using topwater bait on some of them overcast days. Yeah, late August, September. Great time to be doing that. And once that water temperature reaches a certain point, a lot of the muskies, they go shallow, hang out by the weeds and deep weed edges, stumps, stuff like that, islands. And then you'll be looking into some of your glide baits, twitch type baits, subsurface stuff, speed. It seems like, as the water temperature starts decreasing, the speed like bucktail stuff, summer presentations becomes a little tougher. But looking towards throwing some of them plastics and stuff in October that assimilate some kind of sucker swimming, that's a great way to do it. So.
Well, a lot of guys, when we're talking about fishing, we get later in this month, and we'll be looking at water temperatures getting down in the high 50s to around 60 degrees, and somewhere in that time, you're going to see turnover on a lot of the lakes that have a thermocline in them going on. And when that happens, you take the bigger lakes, for instance, when that happens, where I find a lot of the fish move up into the green weeds because there's more oxygen there, and they stay up in there until after everything stabilizes, and then they'll move back out, and they can be anywhere. They can be up shallow, they can be out in 30 feet of water. It doesn't seem to change.
Yes, and that's where, if you're using the live bait method, a sucker on a harness, sucker on a harness bobber, whatever it may be, I believe potentially in the next week you could probably this past weekend you could have started using maybe smaller size suckers. I like to start out small, kind of work my way up big, but some of them giant suckers, they're nice, but it seems like they're more fragile. They'll die quicker. Even last year got a lot of fish on the medium size class of suckers. Up to 16 inches. Some of the giant ones, they work too, but you got to keep the bait alive. That's part of it. And I know you pay more for the large ones. The medium ones always seem to have a little more resilience anyway.
You talked about bulking up jigs for walleyes. You could do the same thing for muskies. I actually used to make that jig rig, and just a ounce and a half jig tied with a bucktail on it, and with a stinger hook on it. We'd use the smaller suckers on that. We can get away with even the large northern pike suckers, and it just, when you add bulk to it anyway, whether you put a piece of plastic on there or anything, it increases the overall size to the fish. I mean, and makes like you're fishing a bigger bait, but you're really not as far as the size of the minnows.
Yep, and I do believe, you can make some of your own rigs like that, but I think there's some companies out there that sell some too.
There is, there's somebody making the jig rig, and I've been playing around making my own stuff up. I'm making a weight forward spinner, like a giant Erie Deary to put a 6-7 inch northern pike sucker on, and when you look at the thing in the water, you got a 12-inch long bait. You don't have a 12-13-inch long bait. You don't have that little 6-inch minnow. So there's a lot of different options a guy can try.
Exactly. Yes.
Could be an interesting fall. Fall's always a fun time. The problem is just so many things going on and not much time to do everything.
Yes. And I know, right? Yeah, it seems like, always that early bow season is during the bear hunt, so I never get a chance to participate. I usually end up bow hunting later for the deer and such, but we'll see what happens.
Well, Tom, it's been interesting talking to you here. You want to give out some information? Somebody wants to get a hold of you for a guide business or guide service?
Yeah, John, folks can reach me at TomLeahyGuideservice.com or at 715-558-6755.
Well, folks, we need to take yet another break and hear from even more of the fine folks that bring this show to you every week. When we come back, we'll have even more on your outdoors, so stay tuned. We'll be back right after these messages. Are you in need of marine service? If so, call Earl's Marine, located on County K between the Big Lakes. Earl's Marine is a local Johnson Avenue authorized sales and service representative. Need a boat or a pontoon for a few days? Just call for rental information. Since 1966, Earl's Marine has provided outstanding marine service to this area. For outstanding service, open 7 days a week for sales, with a mechanic on duty Monday through Friday. Call Earl's Marine today at 715-634-4783.
Pet owners, if there's a word better than inexpensive, it's free. Hayward Animal Hospital has always offered a free wellness exam with the vaccination of your pet. Your cat or dog will be given the highest quality and most comprehensive vaccines available to ensure continued protection against a variety of diseases with no hidden exam fees. The next time your pet needs vaccinations, consider a free wellness exam and Dr. Ostrander's over 30 years of experience. Hayward Animal Hospital is located on Highway B. Call 715-634-8971.
Welcome back to the last segment of this week's Wisconsin Northland Outdoors. And folks, one of the big events that always happens here in the Hayward Lakes area is the Hayward Muskies Inc. chapter of the Muskies Incorporated Fall Tournament. I had a chance to talk to the club president, Mike Persson, the other night on the telephone with some great information on the tournament that's coming up.
Mike, your annual tournament's coming up real quick here.
That's right, John. It's October 1st, 2nd, and 3rd this year. We fish Friday, Saturday, and then Sunday morning. And if people want to sign up, they need to go to Hayward Bait and Tackle or Jenks out on the flowage. It's $110 for adults and $25 for kids. And we've got a great lineup of prizes as we usually do.
And Mike, I guess the grand prize is a brand new 17-foot Lund boat with a Mercury outboard and a Shoreliner trailer.
And we want to thank Hayward Power Sports for helping us get that. And everybody's eligible to win that. We give it away as a door prize on Sunday at our award banquet. So all you have to do is be in the tournament, but you do need to be there because it is a door prize. And then we have prizes for the first 10 fish catchers, including trophies. The person that catches and, of course, releases the largest fish gets a replica from Lax Taxidermy. Everybody that catches a fish gets a plaque. You do need to have a witness come over and look at your fish and sign a form, which you turn in. And so it's a pretty good event. People have a lot of fun. It's not real serious fishing. So anybody that likes to fish can have a good time and have a chance at a boat, motor, trailer. And then, of course, also maybe a trophy, maybe a plaque, maybe a replica.
Well, I appreciate you putting that out there, and let's hope we have a big turnout for the tournament.
Okay, very good. Thanks, John.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, folks, we're about out of time for this week's show. I'd like to remind everyone out there that if you miss a show, go to our website at wnoradio.net. And from there, you can link to our podcast site, and the show is also also on Spotify and Google Podcasts every week. And also, if you're looking for information on vacationing and lodging here in the Hayward Lakes area, check out the Hayward Lakes Visitor and Convention Bureau website at haywardlakes.com. Thanks for listening, folks. We're out of time, and we'll be back again next week with another interesting show for you.
Listen with me, I'm gonna take you there to our Wisconsin outdoors, our Wisconsin outdoors.
This program has been produced and hosted entirely by Wisconsin Northland Outdoor Communications. Any and all views expressed are not necessarily those of the station.